Hi there, I'm Alistair Atkin from Atkin Guitars. The guys from Zion Music in Seoul have come to check out the workshop. I'll show you around and you can see what we're up to. Come this way. So I would say one of the most important parts of guitar making is choosing the wood. So I'm going to bring you into the wood store. We can look at some of the different types of wood we've got and talk about wood selection. So if you come this way, we keep most of our wood. This is a humidity controlled environment. And we like to try and keep the wood in here as long as possible before we use it. So if you look around, we've got mahogany for neck wood here, and this is African mahogany. And then we've got tops, so these are Sitka tops. If I grab something, this is a Sitka top. It's quite a narrow one. This could end up on an LG or a 00 of some kind. But all of our tops are selected and then they are baked in our oven, so that one of the big things that we do, and now a lot of guitar makers do it, is bake all of our tops and all of our brace wood. And the reason for that is there's a couple of good reasons. One of the best ones is stability. And so when you're making acoustic guitars, if the wood's not completely dry, when it goes into a drier environment, it can collapse and distort, and that's probably a guitar maker's sort of worst nightmare. And so we spend a lot of time trying to get our wood to the right moisture content and building it in the right environment. The typical woods we use are Sitka on the top, Indian rosewood. This is a set of sides. We tend to use this for our 37 models, and we also use it for some of our like for example our advanced jumbo model has. But Indian rosewood is one of the classic tone woods. It's piano-like when it's put with Sitka, spruce or Adirondack, and really something that's very well thought of. As with all woods these days, they're getting harder to get hold of, and so we try and keep a stock and try and keep an eye on everything that's coming in. Here we've got mahogany. We use mahogany on all of our sloped shoulder models and on our essential models. Some people lean towards Indian rosewood, some to mahogany. Both are brilliant tone woods, and historically they've both been used for generations. So it's a really great tone wood, mahogany. It's very light and it projects really well. That's one of our mainstays. And then here, if you look here, we've got ebony fingerboards. We often use the stripy ebony. It gets a bit of colour in it. I always think that's a nice look. And we've got a selection there, so there's darker stuff. And then there's a piece of Indian rosewood. That's for a bridge. Indian rosewood is again for bridges and fingerboards. Works really well. It's a traditional. It's a traditional wood for that. This is a nice wood. This is pomeli, and it's quilted. So I'm going to spit on it. Look, if I put a bit of moisture on there, you can see it really comes alive, and that sort of quilted effect looks like sort of ripples of water. Yeah, and so yeah, that's something we use for special instruments. So get in touch with the guys at Zion if you want to sort of talk about a custom instrument, because we're a total custom guitar shop. A lot of people don't know that because we don't post all of it on our website, but actually if you go to our Instagram, you'll see a lot more of that type of those types of guitars on there. And yeah, we're always making interesting stuff. Okay, I'm going to take you into the machine room, which is the hub of where all of the sort of the hard work, sanding the tops and backs to sort of thinner tolerances before we glue them and after they're glued, the CNC machines in there. So come this way and I'll show you. Okay, hopefully you can hear me, it's loud in here. This is the thicknessing sander. It's huge, but that's the hub of a lot of acoustic guitar making companies, because most of the wood comes in at sort of 4 or 5 millimeters, and it has to be thinned down to sort of 2 or 3 millimeters. So that's a very important machine. Here we have 3 CNC machines at the moment. This one here, this does a few different jobs. It does fretboards. You can see there's a bridge on here at the moment. That's a Madagascar rosewood bridge. And it also will cut the rosettes and the sound hole. So if you see here, there's a rosette that's been cut. This will be sanded up to lose the fluff, and then it will be inlaid, and then it will be thicknessed to the correct finished thickness. That's a piece of sitka spruce. Also in this room we cut all the necks on the CNC machine, so have a little look in there. It's a multi-stage job, that really. If I show you. First of all, we go in and we route the headstock, and then the next stage we'll do a rough route on the back of the neck and the heel, and then eventually the final stage will have smoothed it out completely. Yeah. So it's all computer controlled, the CNC machine. All the programs we write here on site are loaded into the machines and they're saved in the machine so we can repeat the processes. But eventually they're all sanded by hand, the last part of it, so that you get the guitar and it feels really smooth in your hands. So a large part's done on the CNC, but the final stuff is all hand done. We'll go upstairs to the boxing room. Come this way. This is the boxing room, and this is where the main bodies of the guitars are made. And the guitars are, the tops and backs are jointed here. Chris, are you jointing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Chris.
Right.
So each top and back has to be jointed, and we use this jig here. If you come in, Lay, and have a look. There's a straight edge in here, and he's gonna run the router along here, and this is the edge that we're jointing is in here. So now that's been jointed, and that it should be ready to glue, but Chris is going to check it and make sure it's all beautiful. You see here. All good?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So he's literally going to glue it right now. So that's one of our in-house sort of jigs that we made, and it's really helped us to get a really great joint time and time again. Obviously, it's also really helped to speed up the process. I'm always a big fan of speeding up the process if it doesn't come at a cost to the quality of the instrument. And this, to me, is clearly a better way of doing it than we were doing it before, because it's got a time saver, and it's also, known to be a really great quality jig that we've made there. So, and that's made Chris's life a lot easier. So he can joint all the week's tops and backs pretty quickly. So if we go over here, these here are vacuum presses. They're not on at the moment, but the gist of this, here's a top. This is for one of our essential 00012s. The top goes into this jig here before the braces are on, and it's sucked down onto the bed, and then the braces can be glued on sort of in 2 or 3 batches. So you'd glue on your X brace, you'd go here, you'd switch it on, it would suck all the air out of, and it would give it like basically a press so that it can glue the braces on. And it doesn't take that long for the glue to go off. So you glue it up and then you'd lift it up and you'd clean the glue away, because we really want a tidy, clean top. And then you can glue the next ones on. But it's also got a dish in this, so all of our guitars have a radius on the top and the back. So this holds the perfect radius, which when we come to fit the neck means that the neck is going to be positioned at the perfect height for the bridge. So all of those things together, you can see there's so many aspects of guitar making that perhaps people don't realise are going on. But yeah, so those are a really sort of valuable part of what we do, and you see those in a lot of guitar workshops now. Now over here, Danny here is going to be fitting a top and a back to some sides. Yeah, and have a lean in there. He's cutting the linings. So these parts here, he's going to cut them in so that the top can be inlaid into the linings. And again, these dishes have the radius on them as well. And so first of all, he'll glue the back on, and then he'll clean the glue out, and then he'll glue the top on. Constantly, you know, gluing up tops and backs and then gluing the bodies together, ready to be bound. Here you can see the bending irons, the bending machines. They've both got some wood in at the moment. These are OM moulds, and this is a dreadnought. Yeah, these are also constantly in use, and they're heated up with a heat blanket. As with most tools in a guitar maker's workshop, you end up having to make them yourself, and we have worked with various engineers who are constantly using helping us to develop tooling. So yeah, these are bespoke bending machines. This is something that changed our workshop completely. We bought a laser cutter probably about 5 years ago, and I knew that we needed to get one, but I didn't realise quite how much it would change the whole way we make our guitars. Every time another guitar maker comes to this workshop, I say to them, you don't know this yet, but if you go out and buy one of these machines tomorrow, it will change your life. But yeah, Chris is gonna show you, and it's a really easy machine to use as well.
Yeah, so I've got all of the files, all the CAD drawings of the different tops are on the computer, and they just download onto the interface on the machine. All it takes is just setting the laser up to there.
So we have a centre line we're working on here, and it's so quick to find the centre line. It's like James Bond sort of technology, this.
Just double check that it's going to fit onto the soundboard. That'll be fine, so we'll overlap in there. Just hold that down.
So not only does it cut, it also scribes. So it's giving us information for what the model's going to be and certain measurements, and that helps us put all those parts into the right guitar. So not only do we get the top out of here, we're cutting some of our braces out of the top as well. So we're getting the sort of lollipop brace, as I call it, along the top, and we're getting all the sound hole braces, but we're also getting the side braces and the back strip out of here. And it's all done with absolute precision. You can see it just sort of cutting there. When we first got this machine, we just used to lean over it, watching it, because it looks like magic. So it makes it a very efficient way to make guitars, because you're using so much of the wood, because you can now get into really close quarters to cut it. Once upon a time you'd cut it on a bandsaw and you'd lose a lot of the wood because you can't. This can go at any angle or find any part of this and cut it out. And you can see the smoke is sort of basically burning through it, and the smoke's being sucked out outside. So yeah, and now it's starting to cut the actual top. Again, it's cutting it to really close tolerances for the bracing on here, which means we put the bracing in the same place every time. All that goes to, you know, continue helping it be really precise, and the repeatability of a great guitar is so much easier like this. And now we've got two of these machines because you just can't be without them. They're so game changing. In here, yeah. Thanks, Chris.
No worries.
So through here, there's a few jobs done through here. Actually, this is the binding routing room. So here you can see this is an advanced jumbo that has been glued together. Top and the back are on, and it's ready for the end wedge here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to route this extra part off the guitar. I'm not going to do it right now because it's really noisy, but you route this off and you route this side, and then we'll flatten the sides ready for the binding after we've also put the end wedge in here. But all these routers are set up with different cutters, so we've got the same cutters ready to go for each model. If we're doing a J43, we just pick up this one. We know it's going to do all of the binding. It will sit into this cradle, and this just gets switched on, and you can move it all around the guitar. And that stays at the same angle all the time. So if the guitar's being held in the right position. So yeah, it makes binding a lot easier than it used to be. So again, you can see a lot of these processes are just down to getting the precision tools and investing in getting them right. And once you've got them, all those jobs that are repeated over and over again get easier for the people who work here to make them. This environment here, this is where we glue the fingerboards up. Here's a neck. It's had its truss rod glued in place. All of our truss rods are double action truss rods, so that gives lots of flexibility. A situation where the neck might have moved a little bit, and it can usually all be adjusted by the truss rod. An ebony fingerboard there, you can see the inlay holes. So I know this is for a D37, this model. And this is our volute for the D37s and the sort of the solid head 37 range. So yeah, this is next week's batch of necks that will be glued up in the next day or two, and then they'll go downstairs and they'll be hand carved. All of these necks need to be hand carved at the end, which is a nice thing because it really means that you can see what the neck's doing. Anyone can pick up any imperfections at that point. Yeah, we can really hone in on what's going on. Yeah, if you come through here, this is actually a binding station, but we haven't got any binding that's going on yet. That usually starts on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. On this side here is where the necks will be fitted. So the guitar gets bound, and once it's bound, it's ready to have its neck fitted. And that will mean that it marries up with the body. Our necks aren't interchangeable with each other. They're fitted for that actual body. So the whole process, that neck will live with that body until it's put together at the end. So after the neck's been fitted and the body's been bound, the next thing that happens is they're sprayed, and they're sprayed apart. So I'll show you what I mean. He's just in the spray booth at the moment. So here's a body that's been sprayed, and then if I look at the neck, so they've both been sprayed independently. What that means is when we come to polish the guitar, we can really polish in these areas here because you've got loads more manoeuvrability when they're apart. The other thing, because we have our aged finish, so our guitars will go into this freezer once they're polished, and we'll freeze them, we'll take them out, we'll freeze them, and then gradually all the crazing will appear. But what that does, it means that because the guitar, the neck and the body are apart, if anything moves in that process, we can then adjust it out. So we're getting this perfect sort of situation for both parts of the guitar. And I think that without doing that, if you were just freezing the guitars when they were together, you'd run into a lot more problems. We can get this guitar into its sort of finished state before we put the thing together, which I think is really important, and it gets the whole geometry of the guitar really spot on. So yeah, so here they're polishing guitars. This is next week's batch. All these guitars have been grain filled, and because we use nitrocellulose, which is probably the best thing to use for acoustic guitars other than maybe varnish, we grain fill all of our guitars, because the modern finishes like polyester, they're so thick you can spray it and it won't sink, but we're going for a really thin finish, so they still sink, but it has this very old-fashioned feel about it. So when you look at it, it feels like an old piece of, you know, something that's 100 years old. And I think there's a certain romance the way that looks, but also from a sound point of view, there's half as much cellulose lacquer on one of our guitars than there is on a high gloss instrument. It's a lot lighter, which then allows the guitar to move much more. So when people sort of talk about the sound of our instruments, usually they'll feel they're pretty full-bodied and they've got quite a powerful sound. A lot of that to do is with the finish, and you can't underestimate how restrictive certain finishes are for acoustic guitars. So I think that's a big part of why our guitars have become so popular. So those will rest for a week once they've been grain filled. Again, it allows the guitar to sort of do any movement that it needs to do, and to sort of dry out a bit more before we spray it. The spray booths being used at the moment, they'll tend to spray and then they'll leave those guitars for a week, and then while those guitars are resting, the next batch gets actually finished. And so we've always got these areas where the guitars are resting, and they're sort of having a bit of time just to sort of be a guitar without being pushed through to the next stage. And often, if problems are going to arise, you'll notice them at this stage. So again, it's another place where you can catch a problem, because all this wood's been sort of bent into, you know, various shapes, and when you carve a neck, it releases the grain in a certain way. So if there's going to be a problem, you'll see it. Yeah, that's the finishing department. In fact, here's pickguard for that gold guitar that I was showing you earlier on. So this is all engraved, and it's inlaid with gold paint. A lot of the stuff that we do, we'll go quite a long way to making these kind of cool things. You know, a pickguard like that, it's a lot of work. And although this is routed on the CNC machine, it's all been drawn out by an artist who's managed to sort of this is an in-house design, you know. So it's unique to our company, and I think that's what's nice about what we're doing. We're trying to bring all this nice little unique stuff into it. So after here, the guitars, they've been frozen, they've usually done their cracking, and then they go upstairs, and that's where the final setup is. So up here is the finishing, sort of the setup area, and so the guitars come up here, and then they come up onto this shelf, and the necks have their final fitting. And so that means that the necks will be, all of our necks are bolt-on necks, so we can take them on and off relatively easily. But for dry fitting, it's brilliant. And dry fitting is where you'll bolt the neck on, check the angle of the neck to make sure that the bridge is the right height and that it all marries up. And then once that's done, they go on to this machine, which is called a plec machine. Now, if you come around here, you'll see how the guitar's mounted. So what a plec machine does, it's got a few purposes. Most of your customers will probably have heard of a plec machine for setting up guitars, and they do fret leveling on them, and it gives it the perfect fret level, because when the guitar goes into the plec machine with the tension of the strings on it, so it's actually simulating, or it is actually what the tension is on the neck. So that means you can go in, the plec will tell you whether it needs to have truss rod adjusted, and then it will find the optimum sort of straightness of the neck, and then it will go in and a little sensor will check the whole of the neck, and it will work out all the heights of the individual frets, and that will end up storing in the computer. You'll take the strings off and it will remember where it was, but it will also work out what's going on once the strings are off, the tension's not on anymore. So it will go in and then it will fret level all the frets, so you get the perfect fret level. But what it also does, which is a game changer for us, it shoots the fingerboard before the frets are on. So it levels the fingerboard, and that's a really, really tedious job by hand. People who do that job often end up with needing operations on their arms and wrists, and the machine does such a good job, and it's really precise. So that really was a game changer for us. Once that's done, the next come over here to Tom, who some of you might have seen Tom on YouTube.
Yeah, big celebrity.
He's quite famous on YouTube. You'll find him on Instagram as the real Don Balcone. Tom glues up all the necks and the bridges. Well, he's done it so fast. Have you done any more today?
No,
two more to do. So yeah, he's gonna route the lacquer off here and route the lacquer off where the bridge is. Then he's going to glue the two together, and that's exactly what's happening here. So once that's done, the guitar's very nearly finished. He'll make the nut and also the saddle, and he'll do a sort of get the strings on it, and then it will go onto the plec again, and it will start doing the plec job, which is leveling the fingerboard, leveling the frets. And then Tom comes in and does the very last part and gets all the perfect heights and does the fret ends. That's
pretty much
that's
it.
pretty much. But what he also does, he puts the labels in. So yeah, the labels are all ready to go. Guitars, get the labels, and then by about Friday, Tom's usually finished all 12 guitars, and then they're ready to ship.
Guitar making machine.
Yeah. Oh look, yeah. Okay. So actually, here's Joe. He does all the fretting and puts the inlays in as well. This has come off the plec machine. Do a final sand on the fingerboard.
Just more to polish it up and take out any tool marks.
Yeah. He's wearing the lovely Atkin hats, which
Representing.
which will soon be available from Zion. And all the frets are glued and pressed in on this arbor. And here's some of the finished guitars up here, all ready to go.
Scanning the fingerboard at the moment.
So yeah, it's scanning the fingerboard, ready to start shooting it. So there's the sensor down there, and then the top thing there, that's a router cutter. That router cutter will come down and just move down the fingerboard, and slowly it will just get the absolute perfect flatness on there. So it's one of our Hawaiian Masters. It's a gold version, and the pick guard that I showed you earlier on will go on here. But very rich bodied sound though. Good. Thank you. You're welcome.